and I will not be happy. Because I'm going to test ride the Husqvarna Svartpilen 801. I'll try not to wheelie. Dirty, damp patches. Good morning, humans. How are we today? So join me as I ride to Gloucester. I was going to Gloucester. I'm heading to the Audio Cafe because I'm going to test ride the Husqvarna Svartpilen 801. I was really in two minds whether to do this today because the weather forecast was looking shit, and it started to improve and it's supposed to rain this afternoon, but this morning it's supposed to stay dry, so we shall see. If it does rain and I get caught in the rain, then that means that my bike is going to get dirty and I will not be happy. I will be very, very mad. I don't actually mind riding in the rain so much, but it is just the bike getting covered in shit that really pisses me off. I'm going to keep this intro quite short so we can get to the meat on the bones, get to the actual test ride itself. So this is just a very quick intro. And yeah, so like I say, I was in two minds, but the weather forecast changed and I thought to myself, well, it's probably going to be dry, or it's probably going to stay dry. There might be a couple of damp patches here and there, which is fine. And but you know, worst case scenario, I get fucking wet. And I reminded myself of the kind of advice that I give to a lot of people. So no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what shit you're going through, the advice is this: don't worry about it. Simple as that. Just don't worry about it. What? Your wife's left you, you've been made redundant, your kids don't want to know you. Don't worry about it, mate. What, you're living on the streets because you couldn't afford your mortgage and you're starving? Don't worry about it, mate. See, I could be a therapist. I am joking, of course, folks. I am joking. So before anybody bashes on your keyboards saying, hang on a minute, mental health is a very serious subject, of course it is. Of course it is. Mental health is part of my day job. It's part of my day job. Yeah, I've just got a sense of humour, which you need to have a sense of humour, right? I mean, I could end up riding in the pissing fucking rain trying to tell you how great a bike is. You need a sense of humour for that shit. And here we are, the Oily Rag Cafe in Gloucester. Save's already here, and there are the Husqvarnas.
So turn it on. You got a nice 5-inch TFT.
Yeah.
Speed in the middle, gear indicator there, and then rev counter right there. They're fairly low mileage at the moment. They've only got a couple of hundred miles on, so when you get up to a certain RPM, the rev counter might change colour. It might go to yellow.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just because they're not quite fully running.
Yeah.
It tells you at the moment you're in street mode. Your ABS is on road mode, and MTC stands for motorcycle traction control.
Yeah.
Which is turned on.
Yeah.
Basically, electric start under there.
Yeah.
That's the kill switch. Just slide that up. You won't need that. That is your menu button or your select button. So you push that, opens up the menu. You can go up and down to scroll through it. So if you go into your motorcycle setting,
yeah,
that's how you adjust modes, traction control, ABS. Now we've unlocked all the software on these. This is called Dynamic Pack, which
yeah,
is an optional extra, which means that your rider modes, you've got street, rain, dynamic,
yeah,
and sport. Dynamic is the only one that's extra.
Okay.
Yeah. And basically what they do more than anything is they adjust the throttle response.
Yeah.
If you go into your dynamic mode, it offers you a lot more adjustment in terms of slip adjustment, so how much rear wheel slip you get when you're aggressively decelerating. Throttle response, so you've got 3 or 4 different settings as to how aggressive it is. Anti-wheelie, you've got 5 different settings of anti-wheelie.
Yeah.
Off, low, very low, medium, high, very high.
I'll try not to wheelie.
So there's absolutely loads to play with. You've got Supermoto ABS, which means you can lock up the rear wheel.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's loads to play with. What I'll do is I'll put it into street mode, which is the base setting. If you want to have a play with it, by all means.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're new to the bike, and I don't know whether you know where you're going or not, but try and concentrate on the route, obviously, as much as possible. But have a play.
Brilliant. Yeah. Awesome. Cheers. Okay, so yeah, nice guys actually. So we had an overall rider brief, and then as you've just seen on the camera, he's showed us through some of the settings. I'm going to keep it in street mode for 10 minutes or so, and then I'll whack it into sport and try dynamic as well. So straight away, the bars are nice and wide actually. Nice and wide. It feels really, for a naked bike, you're sitting quite far forward. The seat feels sort of angled downwards and forwards. And then it's got this nice aggressive styling on the fairings. But yeah, I'll tell you what I know about this bike as we get going. Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit about this test ride then. So basically, I thought I would just jump on the bike and then disappear for an hour, but it's a guided test ride. I've never done a test ride like this before, but I guess because it's a promotional event and I want to do as many test rides as possible, it sort of makes sense really. So there is one of their riders up front and one of the riders at behind me. So yeah, and obviously we're not allowed to overtake each other. We've got to obey all of the rules, so I'll be sticking to speed limits, things like that. So I can't really do probably what I would have done if I'd have been on my own. But yeah, it is what it is. It's still a good experience actually. So let's get into how the bike feels. Now, the riding position, as you would expect, is completely different from a Fireblade. The bars feel nice and high, in the sense that, you know, my hands feel like high, like the bars are wide and high, and the seat, like I said earlier, the seat sort of leans you forward a little bit, like it's angled down, so it feels a little bit strange, to be fair. But is it comfortable? Yeah, it's quite comfortable. You could probably poodle around town for a few hours on this with not much problems, I imagine. Obviously that's an assumption because I've only been on it for like 2 minutes. But yeah, it feels really nimble and light so far, based on 2 minutes of bloody riding it. The tyres are really weird, so it's got sort of semi off-road tyres, but I was chatting to the guy earlier and I said, look, why has it got semi off-road tyres? And he said, oh, it's just like a bit of a gimmick really, a bit of an aesthetic thing. It doesn't belong off-road, and it's not designed or built as an off-road bike. It's built as a road bike. So you would imagine that it would have had something like so the third bike in front of me there, LP25 UUS, I don't know if you can see that, that's not a Svartpilen, that's a Vitpilen, and that's got Michelin Road 6s, I think it looks like. And I think something like that would be better suited to this bike rather than these semi sort of knobbly tyres. But it is what it is. So it feels quite smooth. The Quickshifter, this has got Quickshifter and auto blipper because it's got the dynamic pack fitted. The dynamic pack is optional, extra, but I guess this being a demo bike, they've thrown all of the technology at it to give you a bit of a taste of the technology. So and I'll talk about the technology in a second. So yeah, the Quickshifter and auto blipper seems to work quite well at low speeds so far. And Yeah, the TFT dash is really nice and really clear. Got a lot of information on there. It's got your gear, it's got your revs, your battery voltage, your trip, your average speed, the mode that you're in, the ABS setting that you've got, and the traction control as well. Right, so let's get into basics. So this is a 799cc parallel twin, liquid cooled. The weight of this bike is 181 kilograms without fuel. So with fuel, probably, I don't know, what's 14 litres of fuel, about 10 kilograms, 10-15 kilograms. So it's not all that much lighter than my Fireblade, really, considering. But it feels light. It does feel nice and light. The Quickshifter works seamlessly. I'm really impressed with that, actually. Yeah, so it does feel nice and light. The acceleration's quite smooth. I'm in street mode at the moment, but I'm going to change it to sport mode in a second. What else can I tell you? It has got WP suspension, both front and rear, so that's quite a decent suspension setup. And according to the guy I was chatting to earlier, KTM, who own Husqvarna, also own WP, so it makes sense that it's got WP suspension. So really, so it's not like a cheaply built bike at all. Got some good kit on it, and I think for somewhere between 10 and 12,000 pounds, you probably get quite a lot of you get quite a lot for your money, I imagine, especially if you opt for the extra dynamic pack. So the riding modes: rain, street, sport, and dynamic. Dynamic is the extra one that you get if you pay for the dynamic pack, and that gives you obviously even more sharper throttle response, even more adjustability over things like traction control. It has also got, believe it or not, 5 levels of anti-wheelie that can be adjusted. It's got slip control, I think it's called. So basically you can dial in how much slip you get from the rear wheel, which would be quite interesting if you took it on track. Bluetooth as well, so the TFT dash allows you to Bluetooth your phone for music and calls and things like that. And I think, don't quote me, but I think that's a standard setting as well. Obviously now we're exposed to the wind, so I'm hoping that the audio on the camera is okay. So being on a naked bike in the wind is a little bit different to being on a sports bike, but it's not too bad actually. It's not too bad. We're having to wear these bloody yellow vests as well, and my vest is flapping about in the wind. So yeah, so it's a really interesting bike in the fact that, like I say, you get a lot of technology for your money, and I guess in the bigger scheme of things, 10 to 12 grand isn't all that bad. Right, let's get this into sport mode. Motorcycle, ride mode, street, rain, don't want dynamic just yet. Let's go to sport mode. Close throttle, put it into sport mode. And yeah, the throttle response is definitely a little bit sharper. I mean, it's not going to set the world on fire, but you can notice it. It tips in nice and easily. Partly that's because it's got a short wheelbase. It is quite a stumpy short bike, and that's probably why I feel so forward over the front of the bike, which is good because, you know, in many situations you want some feel from the front end. You know, you want confidence in the front end, especially on a naked bike, because on a sports bike you're going to get more feel and confidence from the front end because you're leaned forward. But on a naked bike, when you're sort of sat upright, sometimes you need to intentionally get yourself forward to dig that front end into the tarmac. So the fact that the seat seems angled forward slightly, and the fact that I feel quite over the front end is probably a good thing. It's just a pity I can't get it on my own and actually open her up a bit. But he did say that there's a dealer up in Tewkesbury, which is only about 20 minutes away, and if I wanted to book a proper test ride, then I could do that, which I might do actually. That's an idea, right? That might be a good part 2 to this video. So I was chatting to the guy about KTM, about Husqvarna in general as well, and these bikes are built in Austria. So anything from, say, the 801 and upwards, they're built in Austria, but the smaller bikes like the 310 and like 125s, they're all built in either India or China. And the reason behind that is the labour cost, because obviously labour is so much cheaper in those countries. They can afford to build more and more bikes. But if they decided, or if they tried to build small capacity bikes in Austria or even the UK, then they wouldn't be able to afford to sell them, because they'd have to be too expensive because of the extra labour costs. So that's quite interesting, and I guess that's something that is common to the whole motorbike industry, because a lot of 125s are built in China and India. And if you're ever wondering why, well, that's the reason, because they can afford to build a 125 with the cheaper labour costs and then sell them to make a profit. Whereas if they built them in Europe, it would cost a lot more because of wages and pensions, and then they wouldn't be able to sell them at the prices that they do. They'd have to put the prices up, and then nobody would buy them. And they're bloody expensive as they are at the moment, aren't they? So anyway, what can I tell you? Let's as the revs build, you can feel a bit of vibration through the bars and through the seat. So it does accelerate quite quickly, to be honest. It's got a fair amount of torque. I'm not sure on what the torque figures are, but the power level, so it's about 105 brake horsepower, there or thereabouts, and it definitely seems to have a fair bit of torque. It does build really sort of quickly, you know. The revs build fast. It will shift. The brakes are nice and stable, so there's no sort of wobbling and moving under the brakes. It's got 300mm discs on the front. The clutch feels nice and light, which is quite good for considering it's a cable, so it's not a hydraulic clutch. And a lot of bikes that I've ridden that have had a clutch cable, their clutch tends to be quite heavy, but this is really light. Right, let's get this into dynamic mode. It sounds, even though it's got the standard exhaust, you can hear a little bit of an aggressive tone as you wind the throttle on. And I imagine that once you get an aftermarket exhaust on this, it actually would sound pretty good, to be fair, for a parallel twin at least. You can definitely hear a change in the exhaust note now that I'm in dynamic mode. Do you know what? I actually like this. If I was to get a second bike, you know, it would probably be a naked bike just for hooning around in the winter. And I'm just trying to consider, like, would I consider something like this? Let's think of reasons. Let's think of reasons why I would. Well, it is fairly comfortable. There's a lot of room to move forwards and back on the seat. The suspension feels quite firm, actually, surprisingly enough. But of course that's adjustable, and I am in dynamic mode. I don't know whether or not, in fact no, it hasn't got electronic suspension, so changing the riding mode isn't gonna affect the suspension. So yeah, maybe especially in the winter, maybe softening up the suspension a little bit might be something to consider, because it does feel quite firm. But it's not, how can I put it, like, at the moment, the way the suspension is set up, the rebound feels okay. It feels nice and plush. It's not diving too much under heavy braking. Where the hell are we going now? So first gear is a little bit choppy. And that's probably because of the shorter gearing compared to what I'm used to. Yeah, this is a really weird route. What the hell? It's a golf course. I've never played golf. I don't think I'm old enough to play golf. I think there's a minimum age, isn't there? Like 77. So yeah, like I say, the suspension on the front doesn't dive too much, which is good. You don't want too much dive, so it feels stable so far under braking. Obviously, you know, I'm not ragging the bike, I'm not really pushing it, so I can't really give an honest, accurate opinion on how the suspension feels. Oh, a little bit of slip, a little bit of gravel. I can't give an honest opinion or an accurate opinion on how the suspension feels when you're really pushing it. But it feels stable so far, so there's nothing, you know, I haven't sort of felt, oh god, I haven't had any oh god moments, except maybe just slipping on the gravel there now. I'm surprised they took us over that route there, to be honest. I think, if I'm completely honest, I think dynamic mode is just a little bit much for this route that we're doing, so I'm going to put it back into sport mode. Well, it's not that it's a little bit much, I mean, it's not suitable really for, you know, a 40-50 mile an hour route like this. If I was opening her up properly, then yeah, dynamic mode would be usable, but it feels as though it needs to be back into sport mode. Okay, yeah, that's it, back into sport mode now. So, am I impressed? Well, yes, I'd say I am impressed. I'm impressed because to ride this bike is better than it is to look at it, right? So when you look at this bike, it's not necessarily all that ugly, because I've seen uglier naked bikes, right? So it's okay to look at. It's not my taste. I wouldn't necessarily open the garage every morning and think wow when I looked at this, but that is subjective, right? Styling and looks is very, very subjective. But to ride, yeah, I am impressed. I do like it. I will, however, say that now that I've been on this bike for about, what, 15-20 minutes maybe, the angle of the bars is a little bit strange now. I think it would be quite easy to get a little bit of aching in my right hand. Aching in the right hand. So yeah, it's probably, you know, after a couple of hours on this bike, you probably would get some aches and pains. But it's not all that bad. It's not all that bad. I would probably consider, if I bought this bike, getting aftermarket bars and making them slightly wider and slightly lower. Like my hands feel a little bit too high now that I've been on the bike for about 20 minutes. I'd like them to be a little bit lower. But like the lower half of the body is comfortable. My legs, my feet, the way the you know, the position on the pegs. Yeah, I could probably sit like this for, you know, a couple of hours on the motorway with not too much hassle. It's fairly easy to stretch your legs out. You can hug the side of the tank, or you can let your legs just sit loose. And it's still, you know, either way it's still quite comfortable. So another interesting thing about the way this bike is built is the fact that the engine is I can't remember how they word it. It's like the engine is part of the stress, is a stress member of the whole chassis. So rather than which I think probably helps to keep the weight down a little bit. So the engine is bolted directly to the stress parts of the chassis. So the engine becomes, the way it's mounted, part of the chassis. And I think that can help to add strength and rigidity, but also maybe reducing weight. I think, don't quote me on that, but quite a few bikes do that nowadays. I think some of the Ducatis do that, but I could be wrong. So yeah, I'm back into sport mode, but yeah, the throttle's a little bit choppy. It's a little bit choppy. So let me go back into street mode for a second and just try that out. So yeah, I'm back into street mode. I'm just going to try the throttle and see if it's as choppy while I'm in street mode. It turns in really nice, you know. I've just hit the horn while I was trying to cancel the indicator. Oh yeah, so in street mode that throttle is far less choppy, as you would imagine, because that's what the rider modes do. Sport mode, dynamic mode, they sharpen up the throttle response. So yeah, if you're like, it's definitely worth, if you're riding this bike around town, like if you live in London or Birmingham, if you live in Birmingham, you want to ride in street mode, it's a lot easier, ain't it? So yeah, so definitely street mode is a little bit easier, a little bit less choppy on the throttle. So you know, if you ever buy this bike, bear that in mind. Street mode is much more suitable for slower traffic. So it does what it is designed to do, which is nice. Which means it's not just a gimmick, it's not just changing a light on the dash making you think you're getting a different mode. It's actually doing something and it actually works, so that's good. Right, I think we're actually coming to the end of the test ride now. I hope this has been quite informative for you. I hope it's been interesting, and I hope it's given you a good amount of information about the Husqvarna Act 01 801. And I think, just in summary, as we come to an end, would I buy this bike as a second bike? And the answer is maybe. 10 to 12 grand seems quite high, considering you can get the new Hornet 1000 SP for 10 grand, or actually less than 10 grand. So 10 to 12 grand might seem a little bit expensive, but you do get a lot of technology, you do get a lot of bike for that. I guess I'd have to look into things like reliability, insurance, and then maybe use those things to estimate whether it's worth the extra money, I guess, worth that extra grand or two over and above something like a Hornet SP 1000. But like I say, overall I am impressed. I'm glad I did this. It's an interesting bike to ride. It was fun to do that test ride, and yeah, it's a maybe. Just a quick update. So initially the price of the Svartpilen, so one guy told me it was between 10 and 12 grand, but the other guy that I was chatting to, he's just said no, it's 8,399. And the Vitpilen, so you got the Svartpilen and the Vitpilen. The Vitpilen is 10 grand with the dynamic pack, and the Vitpilen, I would have liked to have ridden that one actually. The Vitpilen is basically the same bike as the Svartpilen, but it's got lower, wider handlebars. So if I was to buy either one of those, it would definitely be the Vitpilen. So if anybody has any questions about the Svartpilen 801, maybe there's something I've forgotten to mention, and if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them. But hopefully you've enjoyed that, and yeah, thank you for watching me on another interesting episode of Under the Helmet.